Leo, this is your tarot reading for the month of October. It's all about love, sophistication in love. I think you actually get let down by somebody that you love, but we'll get to that. But it's certainly all about love and you understanding your feelings, the feelings of others. In the past, you had some plans, maybe a little torn between which way to go this way, to go that way. Were these about love? I mean, I'm a Leo, I couldn't see that being me, except in a broadest sense, not torn between lovers, but, yeah. You are something of a fool for love, if the truth be known. You fall in love easily. People fall in love with you easily. And I think therein lies maybe a part of what is going to be your downfall, because after this month there is a downfall. You are stabbed in the back by somebody that I think you love. I think it hurts you, you're caught out by them. I think you'd planned to do something, you'd planned something with somebody and they're not interested. That isn't what they want to do. And what leads to the outcome is you facing a choice, a difficult situation. You don't know which is the best way to go. But you're facing a choice here, and it's a very difficult choice. You don't feel like you've got all the information, but you do take a choice. Now, what would change things is if you set firmer boundaries. So if you set firmer boundaries on other people, then things, I think, could turn out better. And the outcome of making that choice is it gives you a very firm direction, but I have to wonder if that is the correct direction, if it's the direction that you need. Now, this reading is about emotions and love, that's for sure. King of Cups here, very, very, somebody that understands his feelings, understands those of others, probably quite sophisticated in his dealings with love and with others. So, yeah, it's definitely about love. I can see, I've already mentioned there's a betrayal here, and how you deal with it and how you move on from it, I think is critical. It's almost all about your behaviour. There's lessons in here for sure. We'll get to them in a minute. There's definitely lessons for you in here. Lessons for you to be compassionate and be in control of your emotions. Now, in the past, you were planning for the future. Planning new things. I think planning your life. I think planning your life with loved ones. And I think what this is all about is that those loved ones don't necessarily share the same aspirations as you. Thinking, as you know, I'm a Leo, so thinking about my own circumstances, I have two homes, neither of which I'm allowed to own because of foreigners can't own land in Indonesia. But I have two homes, one in Java and one in Jakarta. The one in Jakarta is something of a slum by Western standards. I can't say I'm happy there. Not least as at the back of us we have no light because of the person who lives at the back of us has built a new hotel right up to our window, so we get no light whatsoever. And I can't really relax in this house in Jakarta, and I love the house in Java in the mountains. But my wife's daughters are at the house well, they're my stepdaughters anyway, at the house in Jakarta, and she wants always to be with them. She's not particularly happy in Java. So, I've been planning a life in between the two. But slowly I can feel pressure from my wife to be in Jakarta more and more. And as I say, I'm simply not happy here. I'm happy when I go back to Java. Could this be a similar thing we're talking of with you? I can't help but feel it is. And now you're something of a fool for love. Somebody that falls in love very easily. Somebody that gets hurt very easily. So we know this is all about love. I mean, you're rather a loving person, wear your heart on the sleeve. Somebody that writes and reads poetry to your loved ones. But you do get somewhat taken advantage of. I'm not sure you are being taken advantage of here. I think you're planning what you think others want. And you're being very compassionate in doing so. But really it isn't what they want. And this is where I think your downfall comes. You're planning things for you and others that others don't actually want, and it is because you're this over-generous, over-loving person that does get taken advantage of. Now, I'm not saying that your loved ones take advantage of you. Well, maybe they do. Maybe they do. Yeah, it's possible. Now, what gives me cause for concern on your reading, Leo, is in the future you are stabbed in the back. I believe it's by someone that you love. It's by a loved one. So I believe it's going to hurt. It changes everything that you have been planning, everything that you thought was the right thing to be doing. So it completely changes your trajectory. Now, if you look at the rendering, he's clearly working in the city. He's on a rooftop overlooking the city of London. And he's been stabbed in the back and he's dropped his briefcase. So it's a complete change of plans. So although it gives me cause for concern, what I think it's simply about is that you'd run along making plans that included loved ones and not really taking the time to understand what they really wanted. Not really spoken to them enough. And I'm very mindful of my own father. My own father used to do things, he was a very lovely man. He used to do things for other people. He used to do things for me. And he'd be so smiling and proud that he'd done something. And sometimes it was things that you simply didn't want and didn't appreciate. And you'd see that smile turn to despair, disappointment. And I think it's just that. I don't think it's much more. I think it's that you get too attached to your plans, even though your plans are probably done, not out of that much self-interest, thinking of others, but when they don't appreciate them, you get so upset. That's what I think this is about. Now, I've talked about planning, and the energy that leads to the outcome is you having a decision to make. It's an important decision, but it's a decision that you don't feel you have the full information. So going back to this idea of you planning to please others and not knowing what they really want. Maybe that's a part of it. Maybe this whole thing is saying that you need to communicate more. If you think of the overall energy of this, it's an energy of love, it's an energy of understanding. So maybe this is just about you getting more sophisticated in how you communicate and work with other people, particularly loved ones. But you're definitely facing this important decision and you don't know which way to go. I've got one right at the moment. You know, we live in a old house in Jakarta that's somewhat falling down, and it needs some work doing to it, and it's going to cost me quite a lot of money. But we don't want to stay here, and even if we have to stay here, we're not going to be here more than 10 years, you know. So there's no point in really investing in the place. So it's a dilemma about, you know, what can we do to stop it falling down? What can we do to make our lives a little bit better, whilst at the same time being mindful we might not always be here. Now, I can't make up my mind on these things because of, you know, despite having got to pension age, I've still not got my pensions, and I still don't know exactly how much money I can expect. So how can I take these decisions when I've no idea what money I've got, you know? And it's that sort of a dilemma that I think you're in. And I'm quite surprised at what changes the outcome. Because what changes the outcome, I'm pretty certain, is you setting boundaries. It's an energy of you being firm but fair. So whereas I'm thinking that you need to understand the needs of others a bit better, I think it's also about you setting boundaries around how you're going to behave and how you expect them to behave. And again, let's illustrate it with what's going on with the house at the moment. You see, I was told that we needed roof repairs, and also that the back wall needed some attention, maybe some strengthening. But I find that well, the wall certainly doesn't need it. So I got my wife to call in the builders, and when they were there, she was saying, well, it would be nice to extend the kitchen and to have some steps up to the kitchen, and blah, 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 blah. All I was trying to do was stop the house from falling down, you know. And she was redesigning a new house, you know. And I can't blame her. She didn't understand the parameters under which I was working. I've simply got a little bit of my pension and was saying, well, look, you know, we can't hold off not repairing the house any longer. We've got to do some things. What do we need to do? Not let's remodel it, you know. And you can't. These misunderstandings happen, don't they? Now, I mean, it's difficult because my wife doesn't have perfect English and my Bahasa's not that good at all. So, you know, it's difficult. But I think we all get into these little difficulties, don't we? So, yeah. Now, in all probability, you're not going to set firm boundaries. And you're going to take a decision, and as a result of the taking a decision, you'll get a very firm idea of your direction, what you want to do, and you'll move quickly in terms of that direction. Whether or not it's the right direction, I don't know. But I think it doesn't matter because it's a direction that has not been talked through with your loved ones, and I think that's where this betrayal, this stabbing in the back comes. So even if you've taken the right decision and moving in the right way, I don't think you've fully communicated it, and that's the issue of this. But let's get us some clarity on what I'm saying. Now, the clarity I want is on this stabbing in the back. What's behind it? The first card of clarity we get is one of struggle, one of burden, but it being nearly over. Very interesting. Very interesting. The next card we have is one of self-reflection. Maybe missing opportunities because of it, but self-reflection, which I never see as a bad thing to do. And the final card is one of new information coming to you. I've no idea what this means at the moment, but terribly interesting. Now remember, this we're getting clarity on being stabbed in the back. So the first card of clarity is one of you struggling carrying a burden, maybe feeling like you're carrying the burden of the world, but you know that it's nearly over. Now, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go back to my personal circumstances to try and explain this. But you see, a part of this issue about the house, and why I say it will definitely not be here more than 10 years, is that I have two stepdaughters. One is 28, the other is 23. Now, surely, I mean, I'd expected by now, because Indonesia is not like the West, you know, I'd expected by now that they'd both be married and have homes of their own. So do we want this large house in Jakarta, large old house in Jakarta, when we could have perhaps something a bit more modern and smaller, you know, or even maybe be living with them, because certainly one of the boyfriends is wealthy, so we can assume they'd have a big house themselves, you know. Is that what it's about? And that I'm sort of planning for them, thinking what they need, when soon, you know, all of those plans will be shot through. In which case, this sort of stabbing in the back isn't really a stabbing in the back. It's, if you remember, I talked to my dad being unhappy because he makes plans and then they get dashed and he's not happy about it, you know. Is it just that? Is it, should we not be getting over concerned about it? I think that's right. Why do you get into these situations, Leo? And, you know, again, I'm speaking for myself. Speaking for my dad, who was an Aries, you know. But why do you? Well, you think too much, don't you? You overthink. And remember what the overall theme is about you getting more sophisticated in terms of love, in terms of who you love and how you respond to others. Yeah? So this is you thinking things through, you logically thinking, well, you know, if this happens, that happens, they'll want that, so I'll do this. And they don't end up doing what you want. Do you know, if I look back on my life, I've been manipulated by narcissists almost my entire life. And every time I get into sort of real conflict with people, it's because I don't do what the narcissists expect of me. Now, I'm not saying you're a narcissist, but this is the situation we're talking of here. But you know, Leo, having blamed overthinking for your current position, I suspect there's actually some information that you've not got. So you're making decisions, you're thinking through and making decisions for others without really knowing what they want. And there's some more information, you know. Again, maybe I can illustrate from my own life. And forgive me for keep talking about my own life, but these are quite difficult energies that I'm trying to capture for you. So, my eldest daughter, stepdaughter, the one who's 28, her potential husband is quite wealthy, but she's showing no signs of getting married. She's happy going out with him, but doesn't seem happy marrying him. Part of the reason is there's a religious barrier. She's Muslim and he's Catholic, and she doesn't want to convert to Catholicism. That's a part of it, but I think the bigger issue is she's not certain. She's not at all certain. So, me planning around, well, she's going to move out because she'll marry him and they'll get a big house, it's maybe completely wrong. And, maybe the new information comes to me that actually there's somebody else that she's always liked and that this person's just a stopgap. Now, I'm not saying that's true, but it's some information like that you've completely missed. This has changed, hasn't it? So, I do think that we can summarise for you now, Leah. Leo, my interpretation of these cards or energies is very much flipped. It's about you learning lessons to become more sophisticated in your understanding of emotions, your emotions in particular, but other people's as well. In the past, you were maybe planning your life, but planning the lives of others, loved ones. I'm sure in the nicest possible way, but you're a bit of a fool for love. You fall in love easily and people fall in love with you easily, and you do anything for other people. But you'll plan your life around what you assume others want without really asking them. There's an important decision coming. An important decision that you don't feel you have all the information on. And partially, I don't think you've got the information because you've not found out really what those people affected by your decisions really, really want. And maybe what they really want is somewhat hidden, and that's why it's so difficult for you. But nevertheless, you take the decision. It gives you a very firm sense of direction. But it's a direction, not necessarily a bad direction, but it's a direction that doesn't fit in with others who are impacted by it. And they sort of pull the plug on it. And yeah, you can be heartbroken by it, you can be upset, or you can just learn from it that you shouldn't go assuming what others want. Even though, you were doing it with the best of intentions. So if you don't get heartbroken by it, you've certainly learnt the lesson. There was some information that you were missing, but I'm not too certain that you would find that information. Certainly not from going inside yourself, which is what you do, overthinking. But maybe even by asking them, it wouldn't reveal this information, but it will come out eventually, but maybe not until you've been heard. How can you avoid these things? Well, it is setting boundaries. Now, I always see setting boundaries as being quite a hard thing to do, No, I'm not prepared to do that. But that isn't what it means here. This is more letting others know what is possible and what isn't possible. Letting them know what you believe you can do and what you can't do. And my family in Indonesia are constantly frustrated with me for changing my mind on things. And I'm changing my mind on things because of my financial situation is fluid. Shouldn't be. I'm 66 now, I should have my pensions and I should know exactly how much money I've got for the rest of my life, but I still don't. So that's why I sort of shift, and they can't understand why I shift. They can't understand it. Whereas for me, I'm simply reacting to the shifting machinations of my pensions, of what's going on around me. But yeah, it's that. So if I can set boundaries and say to them, look, this is what's possible, this isn't what's possible, they would be much happier. There's no need to share with them all the problems I'm having. And indeed, I share too much. It just upsets them, I'm 66 now. I need to be that King of Cups, more mature, control my emotions, try and help others. So do you, Leo.